This meeting is being recorded.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you so much, everyone, for joining here. I wish we all could be in person there in the campus, and I know most of you are in different parts of the world, so thanks a lot. And it's a great pleasure because all these initiatives that we are going to share here, some of the learnings and so on, started like this in the LEAD program, connecting people online and engaging for purpose. So I'm very happy to have here with us Saskia, our CEO and the lead in the Match4action, and also Bobby, the Robert Fishkin for the CrowdDoing. So please, Saskia and Bobby, present yourselves and let's get this conversation. The idea is to share a little bit of the context, the journey, and use most of our time to be here with you, talking and getting insights and our open conversation. So please be free, ask questions, raise the hands, and let's participate. This will be great. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Helio, for kicking us off. And as he said, it's incredibly nice to be here and see many familiar names and some unfamiliar, which is really great. We hope that we can inspire you indeed and use the inspiration that you hopefully got from this week to turn that into action, because as we all know, that's what the future needs, right? We do know that there is a beautiful future that we can create together. But it does need a little bit of help, and people with lead skills, especially, I think, are in such a great space to help with that, to help create that action that we actually need and inspire others to action, which I know a lot of the speakers and a lot of the sessions that have been presented this week are geared towards. And we hope that we can help you a little bit more with that. So what we thought we'd start, and what Helio sort of referred to, is just introduce ourselves quickly, and I'll let Bobby introduce himself. Then we'll talk a little bit about where lead came from for those that not where lead came from, where Match4action came from, for those that don't know the history, because it's a pretty cool lead story. And we'll talk a little bit about what we've done over the last 2 years or so, in regards to pivoting and how we see action being created. Bobby will share a little bit about the CrowdDoing, which is one of our major our major partner, really, partnership that we've set up in regards to radical collaboration, and how you can get involved with that. And we do hope to get your input and advice in regards to engagement and action as well. So as Helio said, we really hope for a bit of an interactive session. And yeah, so feel free to unmute yourself or raise your hand if, I don't know if that's the functionality that's available, but we are very happy to take questions and comments at any time. So my name is Saskia Verraes. I am based in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and I was part of the pioneers, so the very first lead group that came through, and I was the only one from New Zealand at the time. And it's been an absolute amazing community to be part of, and I'm very, very privileged, really, still to be part of it, and being part of things like these weeks of Me to We, but also just generally just being part of discussions. I see Kate on the line too, who is definitely part of our Match4action team too, was part of setting it up. It's really nice to see you, Kate. I know you're very, very active. You have been very active this week, so it's great that you can also be here. I'll just hand over quickly to Bobby, as I said, who is our co-lead and the original leads of CrowdDoing, our partner. Bobby.
Thank you so much. And I'll share links for CrowdDoing and myself, but just as brief background, I think that my work has long been about how do we connect the underutilized capacities our world has to addressing collective challenges. And so I did that earlier through Books for Teachers, where we got 7,000 classroom libraries set up, and also as a fellow of the Mayor's Office of Baltimore, where we got 34 performing arts venues to donate seats to mentors and at-risk youth. But the last 6 years has been in a context of CrowdDoing's Systems Change Venture Lab, which I'll share more about later on the call. Delighted to speak with y'all, and thank you so much for taking the time today. Go ahead.
Thank you, Bobby. Helio, did you want to kick us off with our history and how we started with our design thinking? You're on mute, Helio.
Thank you. So sure. And maybe Saskia, if you move to the slide that shows a little bit of pictures, so you go directly to the story. As I said, we started here in the LEAD program that Saskia was driving a discussion forum for sustainability and posted a call to action. So how could we do something in the real world? And many people joined, and then we started collaborating online as if it were just a continuation of LEAD. And the interesting thing was from different cohorts. So like Saskia is a pioneer. I was a catalyst in 2017. So we had other people joining from other cohorts too, from different countries. And we started having a weekly call. And we had no idea exactly what we were going to do. We just knew that we could use our skills to do something good for the world. And then we started saying, what about if we apply our skills to help organizations and NGOs to drive more impact? And then we realized that our limited time and effort would be so small, there would be no scale for that. And then we started ideating, and a lot of leads, as you can see here in Meet-We, previously we also ideated there with the lead participants, and we had other design sessions, and we came out with the idea of having a platform, a digital platform, to connect people that need help with those that would offer help, and using technology to scale and really create the big impact. And then this learning journey, we'll share here some of the experience we've had, because after having 8 months of call, we realized we haven't launched anything, not a prototype and Tim here, he was a lead participant as well, and he was saying, come on, 8 months, we haven't launched anything. How come? And then we were realizing that we were having just one call per week. So it was just a limited time, 1 hour per week. So it was about 4 hours per month. So in 8 months was 32 hours of work. So how could we continue without that dedication and really change the game? So in 2017, we took a vacation from our full-time jobs, and we all got together in the startup base camp in San Francisco to spend a few weeks, like a month there together to accelerate. And then we created the B-Corp and also the foundation for Match4Action. And then we started all this journey. And we have many learnings that we can share here about the failures or about the experience we've had in developing the platform and then shifting into more systemic change. And that's why we made partnership with CrowdDoing with some systemic change projects here for scaling social innovation. And that's how we started. From this online experience, we've been working until now. We have our weekly calls, and we welcome many people and all of you that could join us and participate remotely and accelerate all the impacts. So that's about the beginning. Let's see.
Thank you. Thank you, Helio. And I just saw that Tim switched his camera on. It's so good to see you, Tim. And thank you for joining us. You were on the picture, so it's great that people can see you live too. It's really amazing.
So good to see you, Tim.
If I can just pick up from there. So the slide that I've put up is the why we exist, which is really important to continue driving Match4Action and the work that we do. As Helio said, and as you will all know, we all have full-time jobs, and we're all in different part of the world, and you know, we're all busy. We have, you know, other things to do, and then we have all had to deal with COVID, and we are still dealing with it in many parts of the world, especially here, also here in Aotearoa, New Zealand. But the drive that leads us all together here is that we do believe in a much better world, and transformation just needs action. So the Match for Action and the link to action is indeed an incredible driver for us. And as Helio said, we started thinking we could do that through a tech platform. And whilst a tech platform is great, what we also realized is that we can make really good use of our human connections, and radical collaboration through our own connections is probably as powerful, or maybe even more powerful, than the tech that we were originally only focusing on. So we really started pursuing a strategy of radical collaborations. How could we make people work together that may have seen each other as competitors in the Western style, old style of thinking? And how can we find the people that indeed believe in a much better world, like it says here? How can we, you know, make people that have that same view work together? And through the radical collaboration strategy in 2018, I think it was, Tim and I actually joined the SOCAP conference in San Francisco, and started reaching out to trying to find partnerships in the different people that were there, trying to see how could we find more people so that we could scale up faster than we could just by doing it ourselves. And that is how we discovered CrowdDoing, and we got in touch with Bobby, and we have been great partners since. So we started talking, we signed an MOU, and now we are the not-for-profit within CrowdDoing, and we have been co-hosting many different things. And it's an incredible initiative with many different projects and initiatives that bring people together from around the world virtually. So we were doing this pre-COVID, when not everybody was looking at that virtually, but obviously LEAD has, for the people that were part of, you know, from the Match4action team that were part of LEAD has primed us to be, you know, in a virtual mindset. And how good has that been, right? How good has that, how well thought out has that been, considering what we've had to cope with over the last few years? And we can see that in CrowdDoing as well, where we've seen a major boost in volunteers joining us, people that are looking to do something good, do something with purpose throughout the hard times that we currently have and facing, but still believe in being able to change that future towards a positive outcome. So Bobby, if you don't mind talking a little bit about CrowdDoing, I'll put the slides on. This is just the introduction slide, but tell me which slide you want to go to.
Sure, and I think the next slide is the one that starts to talk about the initiatives, because, you know, CrowdDoing, what we've been aiming at is, in each case, how do we get the adoption where volunteers care about a problem such as stress and anxiety for friends or family or community they may have experienced, and then therefore medicinal foods and herbs for stress and anxiety has been a historical area of focus. And likewise, catastrophic wildfire prevention is something that affects us in California. So how do we create an opportunity for everyone with expertise, wisdom, subject matter expertise, or to just care passionately about the problem, to be in cooperation on that collective challenge? In the case of wildfire prevention, there's lots of different stakeholders at risk on the sidelines, and lots of types of things that we could do as social innovations that are not being done. In the case of medicinal foods and herbs, there's thousands of years of history, but modern science gets to neglect it frequently because patent incentives have economically not incentivized the randomized controlled trials for things that you can't get patents on. in crypto impact potential, we've evaluated dozens of tokens for could they achieve sustainable development goals. In vertical gardens and hospitals, we've looked at how vertical gardens and living walls can pay for themselves in hospitals. In homelessness prevention, we've looked how, just as Stanford's professor co-housing model has professors buy half of each home, what if people could afford to buy a fraction of a house and not a whole house? Please, next slide. One more initiative, Nature Counter, is where we've been working on how people have time in nature and get different benefits, psychological, physiological benefits, and benefits that achieve their goals, productivity goals. So citizen science and quantified self is something that we've had people working on in that context, both an app and courses. So in each of our contexts, we've aimed to apply radical collaboration. In Nature Counter, we've reached out to nature immersion researchers. In wildfire prevention, we've reached out to fellow organizations inventing different things around wildfire technique, whether it's early detection or Internet of Things applications for that, or drones or rehydration. So we've tried to collaborate with everyone who shares a collective problem, because our narrative at CrowdDoing is that global important problems become larger to the degree to which we don't collaborate. To the degree to which we hoard them, they become overwhelming. But the degree to which we share them with the right people in the right way, we can gain agency. And I think that's where self-determination theory comes in. We think that our autonomy is a question really of whether we've gathered a requisite variety of interdisciplinary collaboration sufficient to be able to address the challenges that would otherwise be intractable. So each of these interventions, oh yes, we have goats here, different interventions that reduce fuel load. We've partnered with Columbia, for example, to work on the goat simulation in Oxford University's Systems Change Society, to interview reinsurers, to evaluate these, for example, and this diversification of intervention. You know, there were 400 million beavers before Columbus in the US, and the idea that we can rehydrate through nature-based solutions as well as modern technology is something that's incredibly powerful. We've been working on wildfire mitigation as a society for thousands of years in the case of indigenous, and Ben Franklin's lightning rods are hundreds of years old, but there's still underutilization of social innovation proportionate to our collective needs. I think, is that the last slide? Oh, yes, nature immersion. We have this nature immersion. This was what I was alluding to: psychological benefits, physiological benefits, aesthetic benefits. Actually, what's interesting is nature immersion has network effects. So if a family gets nature immersion regularly, even if they all get it separately, they'll behave differently together, or a company or a community, etc. And so we actually think that that nature immersion is something that changes people's social capital. Their relationships with friends, family, community get evolved in order to when they get enough nature immersion. So attention restoration theory, nature deficit disorder reduction, ecotherapy, forest therapy. There's a whole lot of different terms for this, but experiencing proximity to biodiversity has profound benefits for humans.
Thanks, Bobby. I know that that was a bit of a whirlwind through CrowdDoing, but I can tell you it is incredibly inspiring. And this is obviously a fraction of the initiatives and projects that we are working on. And there is currently, how many, like 1,300 active volunteers, Bobby, around?
1,600.
600. So, you know, it's a great organization with virtual volunteers around the world that work on different time zones and different courses. And one of the key things we try to do as well is what will be referred to in regards to self-determination theory is provide the role that people want to create for themselves. And so it is about service learning. It is about helping the world, but also doing what you want to do and want to learn about. So it is combining that and then creating the role that fits with that within the project that you are most passionate about. So it is not that we go out and say we need, well, we do go out and say we need a graphic designer, But if you come in and you happen to have, you might be a graphic designer, but actually you go, well, actually, I would really like to become a teacher. Well, we can actually also put you into instructional design teams in different projects. And we try and match that as much as possible to create that continuous engagement and learning and impact at the same time, which is incredibly powerful. And it gives people meaning, and which is, as we all know, also really good for mental health and capability building for that change that we really need. So here are some, I copied that in, some stories that we got from our volunteers. I see, Elaine, you've raised your hand.
Yeah, I was wondering if you can talk a little bit more about these projects. So I understand you have like different projects, you have different areas of interest, and you have like a lot of volunteers, but I think I missed it, or not quite sure mentally, like what is it that these volunteers are doing? Like how are they furthering these projects or these efforts? Like you're talking about taking action, but what is the work they're actually doing, and what are they working to achieve?
Elaine, can I ask whether there's one of these that would be good to give you an example, for example, medicinal foods and herbs, or wildfire prevention, or nature counter, or homelessness prevention? I could tell you more about an example that you'd like me to.
Yeah, well, I'm just like looking at your website, and I see like reports, like, so you have like studies, there's like research for all these things that like making all of these things are better, but like how do you go from like knowing this is better for society to actually do something? So we can
Sure. So
maybe we take like affordable housing, because this is like a very complex issue, right? And it has many different factors in it. So maybe you can walk
right.
through
So
that.
we're a venture lab in architecture, which means that we're co-designing and co-founding and co-building new innovative solutions to existing major challenges. So in the case of affordable housing, we've partnered with Mark Moulton, who is the former chief housing officer for San Mateo County for 11 years. And he 40 years ago founded Habitat for Humanity Bay Area through the South Bay part of it. And, you know, that has been therefore focused on a new financial product, which would be fractional ownership of a home for non-Stanford professors. Because right now, every Stanford professor almost gets, if they have an off-campus home, the university buys half of their home, but they get a mortgage on the other half. But if you're not a Stanford professor, no one can get that. So what we've been doing is partnering in that initiative with the University of Waterloo in Canada, WatSolve program, who have for 4 semesters collaborated with us to support that, as well as 150 individual volunteers in that initiative, as well as IFSA, which is half a dozen universities in India that have a pro bono club in finance. And what we've done is, and also Carnegie Mellon students, et cetera, we've worked with a number of universities and non-university collaborators in that to design diversification, housing access, and liquidity as a 3-legged stool of functionality for a new financial product that becomes zero subsidy affordable housing. So that means that at scale, it could attract capital at better performance than average market return on capital, assuming Stanford's experience of co-ownership of professor homes is indicative, as well as other data that we've assembled to make that case. So that financial product would let someone, for example, buy half a home, or 2/3 of a home, or 1/3 of a home, or vary their percentage ownership through their life cycle of home ownership. Or if they right now have no diversification because 99.9% of their assets are tied up in their home, they could diversify 10% of their asset of their home ownership to 100 other neighborhoods, so that they're at least somewhat diversified relatively. So in that case, the volunteers have been, for example, Joe Stiletti's been a leader in designing a finance operations model that could allow banks and impact investors to join forces in the future and prevent homelessness. Because if we got an evergreen investment trust, a closed-ended investment trust created for such a model for New York, Bay Area, and Seattle, in theory, one could prevent 1/4 to half of family homelessness, assuming that in that example, we have rent to own as an example. So that is a financial product innovation co-design with the volunteers, as it were. But each of these is different, right? Because, you know, Medicinal Foods is piloting with 4,000 nurses at a nursing college in Michigan, along with the Detroit area, Michigan area for that as a social innovation product. And wildfire prevention, you know, we're collaborative with, for example, United Nations Arise to develop a toolkit for catastrophic wildfire prevention in the US, and pilots. We hope to do one in Santa Clara for net risk reduction of wildfire risk there through, we have 24 social innovation partners that have agreed to be systems integrated into net risk reduction. So in that case, the volunteers are evaluating all of these different solutions and identifying the cost and benefits of different combinations of them. Maybe I'll pause there.
And just adding to that, Bobby, and answering Elena, I think there are some elements that are, let's say, unusual when we compare to other initiatives, because here we apply the elements of impact business, but it's not a business because we are talking about volunteers. And then we have expert volunteers with deep knowledge, depending on the project. Here we have data scientists as volunteers, we have experts, and we also have volunteers that are seeking for learning, so they can pair up like in marketing area or data science, so they learn together, they take on tasks and they help advance. And this eventually becomes a business or venture or organization. So that's the approach CrowdDoing has done. And I see a lot of the learnings we have with the organization be driven with empowering the teams and remote collaboration and self-organizing is a lot of learnings we can take to our corporate world. Like we always try to do that, but we have so many rules, I say, or it's not so easy that it's incredible to see the advancements in those projects in such a volunteered and self-management teams. So that's also a very good learning for us.
Very true. And what I wanted to add as well in regards to practical, there's two initiatives that, well, we talked about medicinal foods, but the wildfire prevention team has actually recently come to an agreement with the UN to help them to create a wildfire prevention toolkit. So that is really, really practical. We've got a 10-month contract with them, and we need to create that toolkit that will be used in communities in different ways to help prevent wildfire and wildfire risk reduction. I don't know if you wanted to share a little bit more about that, because that is an amazing achievement in itself by a volunteer organization to actually get that contract with the UN to be able to help with that. And that is obviously based on the fact that some of the practical work that sits within that citizen science part, where we have gathered an enormous amount of data, and also within wildfire prevention in the medical collaboration sphere, we've actually created a wildfire prevention alliance where we reached out to different parts of the ecosystem of wildfire prevention and said, hey, you do that, she does that, why don't we all work together and try and create this set of solutions that can actually be applied to different communities and different housing styles and different areas, and not just in the US, obviously also in Australia and wherever else, Canada, wherever else, wildfire is an increasingly scary problem to deal with. And so we had about like 20 odd organizations, startups, social enterprises that have agreed to join in with an alliance to actually work on that together, who are now all working with us on the UN solution toolkit as well. Did you want to share a little bit more about that, Bobby?
Sure. Just to share a little part of the prehistory to that, we had presented earlier at the Skull World Forum the wildfire prevention narrative that right now the risk is all siloed. The health insurance risk, the life insurance risk, the crop yield risk, all of the business interruption risk are all separately transferred. But really preventing them is what people want. And right now the reinsurance industry is moving the risk around, but that's not helping us prevent catastrophe. So then we saw that there was the International Day of Disaster Risk Reduction in October. And what we did is we created Global Catastrophic Wildfire Prevention Day as a way to express holidays for systems change, which effectively is a narrative we have that you can build new holidays on top of existing holidays by, rebranding them effectively within the scope of them. And that's what we did. And we actually got incredible collaboration to get begun with that. And that was actually a UN holiday that had been, you could say, lying a bit dormant for some years. But the UN folks were so impressed by how we handled the holiday, effectively squatting on their holiday without permission, but that they invited us to host it for real for the whole year, almost, to do it right this year in collaboration, because they realized that we were doing the bridge building of the social innovation side of what they had been also running symposium on in their own parallel universe with more Fortune 500 collaborators in their mix. So what we've done is applied this multi-dimensional lens to saying, who are all the stakeholders that are vulnerable that could prevent the risk if they had options? And what are how can a block take action together? How can a neighborhood take action together? How can a collaboration at each scale happen? And that's been something that we've seen, that there's a last mile gap for action. There's a gap of dimensionality. For example, we got university students in Canada to run data science simulations and find that there's 10 times more serial arson in California than Canada, UK, or Australia, because we do 10 times less programming to reduce it in that example. We likewise find drought reduction, rehydration, rainwater harvesting has none of the same support infrastructure that is needed for adoption. And yet hydrological drought spreads fire 10 times faster. And so there's a whole ecosystem of social innovation for each vector: early detection, or early intervention, human factors engineering to reduce ignition. We think that it's actually a kind of systems change integral opportunity for us to reclaim agency, which is why interdisciplinary cooperation and radical collaboration among groups that, well, in the 20th century, groups would compete if they're in the same sector too much, compared to what's actually advantageous, which is that if we can accelerate each other's learning, if we can agree that, there's always going to be redundancy, but if we make that incidental rather than definitional to how we cooperate, if we align for the gap that exists, if we stack social innovations proportionate to our collective needs for wildfire pollution net risk reduction, then we can reclaim agency. So I'm going to pause there and hand back to Saskia.
Thank you, Bobby. That was great passion that you showed there for our for our systemic innovations. And I know Avinash, she's on the call. I know that you've turned your camera off, so I'm not sure if you're still there, but I know that you did a session on systems thinking. So I think from that perspective, this must quite fit well with what you've been teaching people about, right?
Yeah, that was from Joe, actually, Joe Anthony.
Oh, I thought it was
just a
you.
participant, but he did a great job out there.
So we've been talking quite a bit. What we would love to hear from you all as well is, you know, how do you think we can scale action for impact even further? How might you engage, or how would you engage? What do you see the opportunities being, or what do you see the hurdles being for not doing anything like that, for taking action in your personal life? And how can we collaborate with anything that you may be doing already and need some help with, that we can help accelerate, so we can boost our common purpose, which is, you know, coming back to what we have as our title of this session. I don't know, Helio, did you want to add anything to that?
That's it. Let's hear from the people here. I think some have already been involved with Match4action, so that's so great to see Avinash and others here, and others that are new. Would be great to hear the questions and talk a little about the learnings we've had so far.
Did you raise your hand, Avi?
Well, I was about to kind of brainstorm on an idea depending on the time, but just before this, we had a session about community building, right? I mean, how we could have community building on that. One of the things that we do is, I love what we are doing at M4A. I've been involved right at the concept phase, so I was always intrigued with the idea. One thing that I see as a shortcoming for anyone who is going through a stage of the life where they have kids and everything, that they are not able to spend a lot of time on things that are, they really want to support. And I was wondering if there is a way to collaborate between what we do, where mentors and experts share their own knowledge, helping others, but then they send a portion to a charity, whatever is coming in. So basically they are sharing a knowledge, but then they are sending their portion of their proceeds to any charity. And if we can bring Match4Action's charity organizations to get supported that way, and not just by actually doing that work. So there is a different way to support it, and something that on a broader scale we can talk about, but I want to put it across.
Yeah, it's a great idea. What do others think about that?
It does need a brainstorming session, not like like this kind of a forum, but I think we should definitely continue this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that we were hoping to build into the purpose for action bit, which is what we are still building within Match4Action, is indeed a link to micro mentorship. So when people think they might have established what they want to do in life, or what really matters to them, that they can actually connect to people that are in that field or are following that same type of purpose. So that seems to be a very big alignment with what you are just sharing as well. And yeah, I would love to be able to see how we can collaborate on that.
I love this idea, Avinash, and I was thinking here, of course, using technology, we might even translate that, for example, as a sweet equity. So people are dedicating their time, and then we convert that into a sweet equity, like a token or something that can be converted into benefits for other organizations and not necessarily revert back to themselves as equity, or if those businesses they scale because they have a lot of value to society, they can be funded, they can be rewarded, and instead of the people receiving back the money from the time they spend to advance those innovations, they could revert back those equity to other organizations they would be passionate about. I think that's a great idea. Thanks for sharing that.
I think there is so much potential amongst within the lead community itself that it could be harnessed better. And I think there's a lot of desire to help, but sometimes it's the connect that is missing on that. So M4A is a great place.
I have a question. Saskia, Helio, nice to see you again. Bobby too. So I remember from 2019-18, you guys were talking about creating value by providing crypto. And so my question today is how about this idea? Money is a tool that we experience wealth, but money is not, it's going to go away. It's a corrupted thing. So how would you show people can get wealth through time exchange?
Well, I think, Kate, the example we were bringing here can be one case like that the time dedicated should create this innovation value that can be funded, and can be funded through crypto, or can be funded for any other valued assets that would revert back. So the time dedication should really change the game, like advance in some of those areas with true innovation and creating value. And then that's, I think that's what you were asking, right? This time, how could this enhance the value? And of course, there are different perspectives of that. It's not only wealth in terms of money, so people are not dedicating time so they can become rich. But here, I think the main thing is all about the purpose. So people connecting to the purpose, they could really transform their time into the impact. And then the question is, how can we really measure the impact and ensure that the metrics are related to the objectives that they are dedicated for, you know? I don't know if that's what you were asking in terms of growth and wealth.
Well, I mean, okay, so example, a person from the slum, they can donate their time to providing value to the community here, and they, in exchange, they get loaf of bread or something like that. Do you have metrics set up for that?
No, it's, well, of course, time and knowledge, and I think the difference is, and that's a great question, Kate, because, for example, I'm speaking here from Brazil, and there are a lot of slums in Brazil, especially nearby here, like in Rio, and we always underestimate the potential of people in those areas because they don't have education, because they don't have opportunity, most of all. And throughout Match4Action, that was the first breakthrough impact we made when we brought this idea to the students here in Rio from the slums. And they were having an organization helping them to learn technology. So they were students, but they took on embraced the project, and they coded the first app, and they went to Stanford, I think it was in 2019, one of the students representing the project that they delivered. So you see, one thing is giving the opportunity for those people that they will share their time to learn and create impacts. And then, of course, they need to have the basic needs like exchanging for bread. And people, sometimes they drop out those courses because they need food, or they are under fire, like the drug dealers, they are shooting on the slum, and they cannot go to the place where they have the computers or the internet to learn and to connect online. So understanding all that complexity, I think we can break it down into two perspectives of time. Time of people that already have invested their lives to acquire the knowledge that they can advance the innovation, but also the time of those high potential that they can learn fast and also contribute. So I think this is very inclusive. I think that's a good point you brought, Kate, for us to think about it too.
I wanted to add, Helio, to what you were saying for a second. I agree with everything that you just shared. I just wanted to add that, you know, we want a world that can work on what it loves, you know, and right now, whether people can economically afford it or not, the front lines of social innovation are in general closed. From someone walking up and saying, hi, I have a project management expertise, or I'm an engineer, or I'm a doctor, or I'm anything beyond the you know, I mean, in law and accounting, they use skilled volunteering, but in the rest of sectors, it's not systems change oriented, and it's often not even skilled. But if we take open source software as a benchmark, that community learns on the front lines of building social innovation. That's what we need for every area of cause that addresses collective challenges. And so I think the first way to let everyone work on what they love is to let them, but then beyond that, there's a large percentage of humanity who can't afford to. That's the other layer, right? And at that layer, it's a question of not over promising to them things that can't be delivered, because at that point they're an economically vulnerable population, you know. And so what we want to architect for is, you know, not placing you know, so some of the crypto projects we evaluated have created unreasonable compliance burdens on bottom of the economic pyramid individuals who are the least able to navigate compliance hurdles. So, you know, some of the remittance tech, some of the tech in crypto for anti-poverty, prosperity. So I think that what we want to do is figure out a way to have upward mobility without creating undue risk for those we're trying to create upward mobility for. And that's something that's a challenge, but I think it's a worthwhile challenge to address across multiple of these areas.
Did that answer your question, Kate?
Yeah, more than enough. Thanks.
And just one quick example that caught our attention too, because when we were first coding the platform, the intent is always, and it still is, to be like a free and open source. So nobody needs to pay for that. Of course, there are the elements or other ways to make it sustainable. But when we brought that to the organization I work for, the company, because they needed a platform for managing all the volunteers and all the work they wanted, they say, oh, I need enhancements, and how can I contract this? I said, there is no contract or hiring. It's a free platform. So thinking about different models, we understood a way to say, for example, the organization has funds to fund projects like the ones that are teaching technology for free for the students here in Rio. So they could make donations from that budget to the organization. And in exchange, the students were helping to evolve the platform for free, not only for the organization, but for the entire other organizations that need it as well. So breaking those corporate mindsets or pathways, I think we can create new ways of collaboration and systemic thinking to achieve other results and outcomes. So that was one interesting way we could create to engage and have large organizations participating as well.
Elaine, go ahead.
I was wondering, how did you settle on these focus areas? I mean, they have like all the problems to pick on the world. Like, how did you settle on these? And are you considering expanding in the future?
Yes,
Yeah.
we have a longer. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, was that Helio? Go ahead.
No, sorry, go on, Bobby. I'll follow you.
We do have lots of areas beyond the ones we've mentioned. We just mentioned some of the more recent ones that we've got some exciting news of. That's a map of 20 areas that we've got collaboration on. We've had 500,000 hours of volunteer time on those 20 areas thus far, more than actually. But going to speak about what is the reason for these areas, the question is whether we can have transformational agency through the convergence of new feasibility, new underutilized capacities that can be brought together. So, in the case of catastrophic wildfire prevention, we identified a neglected opportunity at the interdisciplinary junction of disconnected risks that are in different areas where the industry doesn't look at the risks in terms of how preventable they are. It just looks at the transfer of risk. But in the case of each of these, the broader narrative is, Leibniz was the last figure in Europe to have learned to teach everything that was taught during his day. And so since then, nobody has that superpower of multidisciplinary omniscience. And so what we look at is, where has industry not built the categories of solutions needed to achieve what humans need from our research about where those neglected needs are, not just incrementally addressable in the margins, but where they're transformationally addressable with current available science. So we're increasing and improving, the granularity of science, the implications for usability of science, and we're moving upstream in terms of the things that can have cascade effects of massively multidimensional co-benefits. But we're also trying to do this at a level of credibility to the volunteers, so that if Saskia and I meet a group of 20 volunteers on some Saturday orientation, and they arrive from their own training and their own worlds and their own context, and we need to be able to explain the initiative to total strangers with complete credibility sufficient for them to begin an epic journey to change the world together, from no pre-existing relationship in the way that other contexts would be. Because we list volunteer roles on dozens of volunteer platforms around the world, and they arrive and they're incredibly excited to be actually handed a role that they can co-design into the perfect role for themselves.
Thanks, Bobby. What I wanted to add to that as well is, for me personally, the group Transform the World is the first thing that I set up before. That was before Match4action, which led to Match4action. And when I say transform the world, that is totally what I am committed to. So, and I know, from a systems perspective, that obviously encompasses every single goal that is currently, and every single target that is currently under the Sustainable Development Goals, for example. That is a holistic view of what the world needs to be transformed into the future that I really, truly believe that we can still achieve. So I don't want to choose, I want to support everything. And the way to do that is to try and embrace that collaboration, because obviously me as one person, that could be incredibly overwhelming to say that I'm focusing on everything, but what I'm focusing in is accelerating everything that is already going on and trying to get the right people to the right places so they can help transform and accelerate all the different gaps that still need to be overcome. So I'm definitely not settled on any of the things that we have just talked about. Those are just current priorities, I suppose, but there are so many opportunities to guide people to help transform the world to that regenerative, inclusive, and beautiful future that we can see. So from that perspective, open to anything else that you may have on your mind that you want addressed, or that you can see a gap that we can set up a project team around with volunteers, because that's what we do, right? If we have enough people together in a team, and they can start working on that too. Like, we don't stop people if we can find that gap and a passionate group that wants to lead that. Does that make sense? Are there any other questions? Oh, sorry, Helio, you wanted to add?
No, that's it. Saskia said very well. I think it's unlimited. We have so many gaps and so many people willing to help. I think that's this matching. That's why Match4action, the concept for CrowdDoing, is for facilitating this and accelerating that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we think there's not a shortage of perfect roles in the world for people to create for themselves to change the world. We think that should be something that's abundant in a virtual connected world, in which what makes it perfect is having the other disciplines in collaboration with you in a way that restores a sense of agency that may not exist in other contexts.
Thanks, Bobby. Are there any other questions? We've got about 5 minutes left before time's up.
Or suggestion how to
Or
continue this
suggestion.
great conversation, because in the lead community, I think we are all connected and very easy to reach out to each other.
How do people reach out, and how do they find out more if they're interested in working with CrowdDoing or Match4action?
Yeah, the easiest way for the lead community is to go on the workplace and chat with us directly. We can set up time and discuss specific topics and so on. I think that's the fastest and most direct way to reach out to us.
Bobby has shared his
also-
email address. Sorry.
Oh,
Go, Bobby.
I apologize. Go ahead, Saskia.
Also,
Just that I typed my email address in the chat as well, and earlier shared a link to, we've had 750 people complete our Google form of people applying, in addition to Volunteer Match and Idealist and other platforms. We've created listings, but I think email and LinkedIn or the official channel of the website are all welcome channels. I think that we also organize systems change conversations that Saskia and I have co-stewarded, that have included there's a group of several hundred systems change leaders from around the world who we've been convening in recent years. And that's also had an incredible collaboration gap that's been addressed. But that's been more like conversations with the systems change leaders that we're championing, or our entrepreneurs and residents co-leading one of the initiatives, or mentors to them, and fellow creative interdisciplinary systems thinkers. But we're delighted to collaborate in any of the right containers.
Thanks, Bobby. And yeah, as Helio said, reach out through Workplace, connect on LinkedIn. Saskia at Match4action.org would also work directly for me. But yeah, and there's many, and just, you know, Match4action, the websites, you can go there as well and see a little bit about it. We still, as I said, we're still in development. We had big plans to have Purpose for Action launched last year, but through COVID, we've definitely seen impacts in the developers that are kindly helping us trying to get there. So it's not quite there yet. So we are still updating our website at the moment, but it is there and you can have a look. And CrowdDoing.world is the other website that Bobby referred to for specifically related to CrowdDoing as well. But love to hear from you. And yeah, if there's enough interest, we're more than happy to set up additional connection catch-ups as well to create community, as Avinash referred to before. How do we create community? More than happy to help assist, because connections in this disconnected world are also incredibly important to stay healthy and connected to each other, to not feel lonely as well, because change makers in a place that we are, especially in relation to very often being in a corporate world where maybe the focus has not necessarily shifted yet to a purpose-driven future, might sometimes feel lonely, and connecting through organizations like Match4action or CrowdDoing, or just, you know, within the lead community, which is incredibly important. So it's been lovely seeing you all here. I just want to hand back to Helio. Oh.
Helio, Saskia, Bobby, I want to thank you for huge growth you've displayed since 2016. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate.
And just to wrap up, if you were to give a call to action and like what you are looking for in terms of like, if you fit this description, you should definitely do this stuff. So what would that call to action? What are you looking for, if you can just sum that up for us?
Well, there's always an iota of chaos in collaborating with virtual volunteers who are co-located in 30 countries. But if you enjoy the interdisciplinary process of addressing complex challenges, if you think complex challenges are exciting because they're complex, or that fascinates you rather than makes you feel overwhelmed or uncomfortable, but makes you interested in them because they're really fascinating challenges for us, or that matter to you, then that might be a good recognition. The problems that we're dealing with are all interdisciplinary, and they're inherently extremely interdisciplinary. So if that's a joy, then that's a positive thing. But Saskia, Helio, other feedback on that?
Yeah, and one thing I've learned is that even if it's just 1 hour per week, it seems nothing, but it re-energizes ourselves. And then when we see the evolution throughout the time, it's amazing, because the collaboration of so many people, 1 hour each one, it's amazing. So I think sometimes we don't commit because we don't want to have so much time, or we don't have much time. But even the little time you commit, you say, oh, it's just 1 hour per week, the call, participate, contribute on some activities or tests. It's amazing. And we have to have relentlessness. I think that keeping the mind on the goal in terms of the purpose and so on, it takes time. But we learn and we evolve through that. So I think it's a big learning journey as well, and a lot of impact throughout the journey. So 1 hour is good to a good start. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Helio. And I think we're at time. So thank you all so much for being here. And please do reach out and connect. That would be absolutely wonderful. In my view, anybody that has a little inkling to change the world, please do, and jump into action now.
Phenomenal to meet you all. Thank you all so much, and have a terrific Friday.
Do you guys have a few minutes to chat a little bit?
Sure.
I think
I
Rennie
do.
can stop the recording.
Sure.